So, Prof, what is a good research design? What are the hallmarks of it?
Yeah, I think that, well, of course, there are several or many criteria that you can use to actually assess a good research design. And when we assess our students' research design, we use a lot of criteria like language and the way they situate themselves in a research area, how well they delineate their problem, references, and all these, different criteria. But I think there are two major criteria that are central to actually assess a good research design, and that is coherence and feasibility. And when I say coherence, I mean that the research design should be kind of logical unfolding from the first page to the last. So everything has to, hang together. Your aim or your problem, your aim, your research question, and that you're using relevant theories to address these topics, that the methods are in sync, so to say, with the research questions. So I mean, it's in a way it's quite simple. If you ask quantitative research questions, you should also have a quantitative method to address these questions, and vice versa. If it's a qualitative research question, you have to have the appropriate qualitative methods and techniques and so on to address these questions. So I think coherence is absolutely necessary for good research design. And that goes down into detail. When you look at the design, you see, okay, has this person selected, if they are going to make a series of interviews about gender in high school, for instance, okay, what's the selection of informants? Is it a good selection of informants? And why are these informants chosen? Is it a good selection of high schools and so on? So everything has to kind of hang together, and you have to argue also for your choices. Why did you choose this school? Why did you choose these informants? Why did you choose this method to address these problems? So that is coherence. And then it's feasibility, kind of doability. Is this actually possible to do? So one part of feasibility is, of course, coherence, that you see that this hangs together. You will actually have the right methods for your questions. But it's also that is it feasible, doable during the times frame that you have at your disposal? Are you asking very interesting question perhaps, but are they too big? Are they so delineated in a way that you can address them? Let's say that you have a master thesis that you should write in 10 weeks or 20 weeks. Can you deal with the aim and the research questions during that time? And also, do you have the skills that it takes to do this research? Let's say again that you will do a research in the Philippines, and you have 10 weeks and you have a really interesting question. But do you know Spanish, and do you know the language, or do you have to learn that? And I mean, so maybe, if you have 2-3 years, maybe you have time to learn that. But if you have 10 weeks, then it's not feasible.
Yes.
So I really, because, and it goes for myself as well, and for my students, we like to think big, and think that, well, these are interesting questions. We want to solve a lot of problems. But then we have to look into reality. What kind of skills do we have? What kind of resources do we have? What kind of time limits do we have? How much? So for my own sake, I have to mix teaching with research, and what kind of research can I do in that case if I don't have like 1 year when I can just do research? So that's feasibility. So the design has to be coherent, and the project has to be doable, so to speak. And these are the two main criteria that we use to assess our students' designs. But then I just want to finish by saying that also that this kind of document, this research design document, it's nothing that is kind of written in stone that you have to follow later on, because you might have a very coherent and feasible project design, right? Then you go out to the field and collect your data, and you realize that, wow, I cannot really answer these questions with the data that I actually got from this project. I've been there myself, so I know. But then you can go back, of course, and reformulate the research questions and the aim and methods and so on. But then you have a kind of frame that you can start out from, and then reevaluate or adjust that frame so it keeps its coherence until the end of the project. So that, I mean, it's just necessary to say that, because sometimes I have this question from students. They come home from fieldwork and they are really, worried, because they say, well, I wrote this in my project design or in my and now I don't think I can answer these questions. Can I change them? And I say, yes, of course you can change them. The important thing is still that you have coherence in your project, that you're actually answering questions that you can address with the material that you have. So coherence and feasibility, that's the main thing with a good research design.
Okay, so all right, you speak as an ethnographer.
Yeah, very much, yeah.
Okay, so can you describe some of the research methods in more detail? I know this is the HRD unit. We're in the Department of Sociology, Psychology, Social Work. We include the anthropologists, we include the criminologists, we include a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're here as a guest of the department, but you're here as an ethnographer.
Yeah.
This is HRD that has calaboosed you.
Yeah.
So I am interested a lot in organizations and what happens there. But obviously, you can do an ethnography, I imagine, in an organization, looking at the culture of the people in the organization. So,
I would say that I have to take this from a kind of personal angle. If I were to do an ethnography of
the University of the West Indies.
Exactly, yeah. Then I would go in as an anthropologist and first of all, I would do participant observation. I would try to participate in as many different events and occasions, in teaching, in meetings, and talk to as many people as possible, staff, students, guards, everyone. It depends, of course, what's the aim of this project, why am I doing this project? But I would combine a lot of different materials. So I would combine materials from interviews with people, observations that I make when I participate in different activities. I would also read policy reports, if necessary, and perhaps read publications from the university. Again, it depends on why am I doing this. So, but let's say that I have 2 years at my disposal, and I have this very broad question about the academic culture of the university, then I would bring in all these different materials and work with different methods like interviews, archival research. I might even look into statements made in the media and the press by representatives of the university to see how they try to communicate the academic culture of
statements made about the university, see how the wider
exactly
culture responds to the university.
Yeah, exactly. So I would work with a lot of different methods and techniques to elicit people to actually talk about. I might not ask them about the culture, but I would ask them about if they were satisfied here, what they are satisfied with, or if they are dissatisfied with something, what they would like to improve, if they like to go to work and why they do that, and all this kind. And then I would also look into how do you do an academic career in this organization? What's the different qualifications? I would look into gender and ethnic questions, of course. Are they relevant, and what kind of discussions are held in the university about working environment, for example? What kind of different groups are there that actually are working with the environment of the university and so on? So it would be a huge project, but I would work with all these different types of material. And then after that, I think I would kind of end the fieldwork in a way and actually withdraw and try to sort this material. That would be a very voluminous material, big material, in different themes and different categories, and see what came out of that, and start to write up a kind of report from that. And then I would go back when I have made my first analysis, made some sort of, these are themes that I see come up a lot of times in the university in different situations. And then I would come back with that and present that to people here and have your feedback on my preliminary analysis, and then work from that.
Wow. Well,
that's how I would do it. But again, that's a very broad, description. Depending very much on time limits and the assignment. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I remember Dr. Chadwick Parks telling us this kind of things. As I said, my method might have been pretty much like yours at the beginning of your PhD career. No design at all. I hope not. I hope I'm a little bit better than that. Certainly, Professor Waller wants to think I'm better than that. All right, so that's an ethnography.
Yeah.
An interview is pretty much what we do here.
Yeah.
Questionnaires. We have some colleagues in the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. They have done the employee engagement survey. It's a national survey. Of course, they were looking at employee engagement and came up with statistics for who is really engaged, who is not engaged at all, and the Jamaican census would be another kind of census, a questionnaire, a survey type design. So you have polls, the political polls, Department of Government, and even sociology. Where we would.
I haven't never actually worked myself with that kind of quantitative surveys, but I have worked with small surveys, but in a kind of qualitative way. So I have, just for small groups, I had made surveys. So I send out, but these are, for example, the students that I worked with in my first project. I had them all to fill in a survey, which was both about their specific bios, personal conditions and who they were and where they come from and stuff like that. But also some questions that they could explain why they were taking these courses and why they were part of this.
So they're open-ended questions.
Open-ended questions in the survey.
So this is why you say it's a qualitative survey. That's why you describe it that way.
And then I actually used them more as a kind of starting point for setting up interviews.
Okay.
So then I had information about these people.
You know what kind of questions to ask.
Exactly. So then I could follow up. I can arrange for an interview with one person and say, okay, I see here in this survey that you said that you were choosing this specific university for this and this reason. Can you develop that, or can you explain more about that? So on. So I used the surveys as a kind of entrance into interview, actually. But I think you can use them in different ways, I suppose.
Because that's exploratory. You maybe don't know the population.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah, exactly. So I did it in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's actually what you can do as well when you ask me about the doing an ethnography of the university. You can send out this survey to the university just to get a first impression and then work from that.
A narrative. So Art, in the interview and the narrative, what's the difference?
I think that you can I mean, narrative is a very broad concept, so you can work with personal narratives, that life stories and so on.
Okay.
But when I think about narratives, I think more about when I have my material, I search for certain narratives.
Okay.
So what's the main, again, if we go to the university and do the ethnography of the university, what's the different main narratives that comes out from my interviews? Is it a narrative about academic proficiency, or is it about networks, or is it about race, or is it about gender? What's the narratives?
So these are the themes.
Themes, yeah,
that
more
emerge.
themes, but narratives are more, because narratives are more coherent stories that people tell some sort of story about a certain theme or a certain subject, that you can see that, okay, there's one theme, gender, that pops up in different situations. People raise that, but what's the narrative? What is the kind of narrative constructed on this theme of gender?
So it might be inequality. So
it might be inequality or whatever. So
all right. So for instance, I'm just trying to understand this. So suppose we were looking at gender and the narrative is inequality. It would be that I would complain that women are getting equal opportunities for promotion. I would, and so I'm saying that to you in this interview. Somebody else in another interview might talk about the fact that we don't have enough women leadership in the university.
Exactly. Yeah.
And another person comes with something else, and then you realize that in the consciousness of the university, there's a problem about gender.
Yeah.
And there's a problem about inequality. That is how you would.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there might be other, okay, what are the other aspects of gender, or do people connect gender to age or ethnicity or religion, or so that? But then that's what kind of narratives are interwoven into this theme of gender? I would probably end up, I would say, making some sort of intersectional analysis of that, seeing, okay, what kind of different identities are combined or not combined with questions of gender. You see what I mean? And when people raise the let's say that we have the inequality, or equality and inequality are the main theme of the research. I would probably end up looking for, okay, what kind of identities are used or formulated in different situations to increase equality, or are given a kind of cause for causing inequality. That was a bit unclear, isn't it?
I'm listening to you. So, all right.
It's always difficult when you make this kind of hypothetical.
Okay. One thing that might not be hypothetical. I wear dreadlocks, and Jamaica is known to be the home of Rastafari.
Yeah.
I am not a Rastafarian. I just like dreadlocks. Yeah. I have noticed that I don't see too many CEOs or too many people in the C-suite in Jamaica. I can identify one CEO who has dreadlocks. And so that might be something. So for instance, it could be that if you're perceived in a certain way, because people on the campus do think I'm a Rastafarian, they do think so. If I hear Ras out in the yard, I know I should look. And students have actually come and asked me if I'm a Rastafarian. So they see you in a certain way. But if I were working, and that's okay for the university, if I were trying to work in corporate Jamaica, they might ask me to cut my locks.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I mean. In what situations does that identity as Rastafari or woman or become important or not important? And as you said, wearing dreadlocks might become important in one situation and not in another. So that's of course what I would be looking for. What is it that becomes important? For instance, for making an academic career in the university. Yeah.
All right, and again, that might be an intersection, because the higher up you get in the universities, the more you have to interact with corporate Jamaica.
Exactly.
So no matter how many publications I have, they're not going to have a Rastafarian or somebody who looks like a Rastafarian as a principal of the university.
Exactly.
Because corporate Jamaica might just not respond well.
No. And and that is also interesting, because it might be that academic publications might be really, really important in one stage of your career, but in another stage, networks might be more important. So, but now we're speculating. So, but still,
there's no study.
But still, I think that's the way of finding the narrative. So you have themes that you're interested in, but what are the narratives that are kind of telling about these different themes?
Alright, phenomenology. Mr. Branch, I have tried to say that I am doing, Mr. Branch just laughs at me. So can you tell me what exactly is phenomenology? And as I said, Mr. Branch just laughs his head off when I tell him I'm doing phenomenology. Mr. Branch nearly dies.
I can't really. I did read a lot of phenomenology in the beginning, but
was that it's the phenomenon. So, for instance, the meaningfulness of work is something Mr. Branch and I and the students were looking at. So it might be a job or how I express meaningfulness, but it's the phenomenon of work.
Yeah.
I mean, so for instance, I went off on sabbatical leave and did no work, and I was surprised. I thought that I would have been happy to be away from the institution, but it's how I felt about myself, and I realized that I define myself according to my work.
Yeah.
So when you look at the meaningfulness of work, my self-esteem is caught up in. So maybe it's something like that. Maybe that's why Mr. Branch is laughing, because.
No, but I think there are different traditions in phenomenology.
Yes.
So you have this kind of core tradition from Germany and France, and about phenomenology trying to capture the kind of essential core of a phenomena, and then you have to make an accurate description as possible of that phenomenon. And I've seen that kind of tradition has been taken into sociology and pedagogics and so on, where they try to videotape different situations, or trying to describe the same situation as from as many aspects as possible, to get this really pure description of a phenomena. But that's kind of different from how it has developed in anthropology, because then, at least my reading of how phenomenology developed in anthropology was that you combined this German tradition of philosophic phenomenology with a kind of American pragmatism, where you actually more started to look, and this is Clifford Geertz, for instance, who did that, starting to look into how are different phenomena constituted in certain aspects. So you have this more idea that what do you say? Well,
I was talking meaningfulness of work.
Yeah. So that would be constituted in. You have this phenomena of the meaningful of work, right?
Yes.
So you have the phenomena of work, but that phenomena is differently constituted in different situations and in different countries and in different times and so on. So, and then the anthropological mission or task would be to see how is that constituted in Jamaica. What does work mean here? What's the meaning of work here? And then perhaps compare that to Sweden, and what's the meaning of work there, and see how these phenomena actually develop in different ways, in different traditions and in different cultures or whatever. And then we can come into methodology, how to do that. But I think so you have different, I would say, But it was a really long time since I actually was reading this, but that you have these different traditions of actually understanding what phenomenology is.
So it is far more complex than, maybe Mr. Branch is right. It's far more complex, moving away from that. We talked about grounded theory in one of the previous. So what about case studies?
Case studies, yeah, I think that's what we anthropologists do all the time, more or less, case studies. But we try to build a case in our material, some sort of case. So it's not a strict case studies like in the Manchester school, or that you have a case that you kind of describe or so. But you kind of, in anthropology, I think we build cases. So when I was working on climate change and how people coped with floods in Jakarta, I kind of built a case around how people mitigated and learned to live with these recurrent floods in Jakarta that comes every year. So I was working in this small village in the center of the city of Jakarta. So I built a case from that to talk about how they learned to live with these risks and catastrophes again and again and again, and then I used that case to discuss various ways that the government could approach this problem. So I think that we do work a lot with cases in anthropology, but as I said, not in that conventional sense that we pick a case.
Yeah, you have an organization and you're looking at something within them.
But I think it's a good way of thinking cases, that you have a case and that then you have. So the thing is more that the case in qualitative studies, it's very rare that you can say that this case is representative in the way that you say in quantitative research. You can say, okay, this is representative for the middle class or whatever. No. We cannot do that. We have a case, but then we have to say, okay, what kind of broader issues and problems and questions does this case address? What can we discuss by using this case? So that's a different way of using a case than the quantitative way of using representativity, I think.
Okay. Well, it would be relevant because in our programs we can't pre-design what the students do. We are being encouraged to do mixed methods, but there are still people who come down on the side of qualitative or quantitative.
Of course, yeah.